When you speak about being an investment and financial capital, what comes to mind? New York, London, Hong Kong. You know, how does Nigeria, in fact, Johannesburg, how does Nigeria get there? First of all, it will be creating, an enabling environment for investors. If we're talking about investment, the problems I see now, the Nigerian market is not efficient enough, number one. Number two, it's not transparent enough. Number three, it's not stable enough. If the government, not just the government, but also private sector participants could work actively in terms of reducing, the amount of opacity, in the market, I think that investors will feel a lot more confident, investing in Nigeria. So if we're comparing the Nigerian financial market to other global financial markets, I would say that the Nigerian financial market is still in infancy stages, if I can use that word. And that's because, like I mentioned earlier, we're looking at New York, for example. We're looking at London. We're looking at Singapore. We're looking at Hong Kong. If we're talking Africa, we're looking at Johannesburg. How close is Nigeria to being, as efficient as any of these guys? I think that Nigeria is still some way off. If Nigeria has a chance, the city that would have to take this mantle up will be Lagos, because Lagos is the commercial capital of Nigeria. And Lagos is currently doing a lot of work to sort of position itself as being ready for that challenge. But Nigeria still has some way to go. Nigeria definitely still has some way to go. It's the US dollar. What we're asking is, if anything happens to these guys, how does that affect the dollar? Nigeria's main export is crude oil. Crude oil is sold in the dollar. Anything happens to any of these guys, then we suffer it, definitely. When there was a financial crisis, foreign aid to Nigeria dropped. And this dropped, obviously because, guys in Wall Street, paid less in taxes and whatnot to the government. And, it is the government that then puts some portion of that money to, international organizations like the IMF, like the UN and whatnot. So, it's expected when we say financing of projects, so financing Nigeria, we can even just link that to foreign aid. The impact of Wall Street is huge. I can say that. It is very important that SMEs, and entrepreneurs think locally and also at some point look to penetrate other markets. In terms of penetrating other markets, we have to deal with issues, most especially macroeconomic issues. Things like barriers. We have to look at the barriers to entry, currency, stability. We're dealing with Africa. If you look at West Africa, for example, number one issue would be language. If we're talking Nigerian, we're talking facts. The bulk of West Africa speaks French. The average Nigerian does not speak French. So it's a very tricky situation when a Nigerian entrepreneur has to penetrate a French market, because every market has its own specifics. How do you learn to think like the average French-speaking African? So these are the minor things that we would have to deal with and would have to overcome. But it's very important, because you see, especially if we're looking at Africa, we're looking at West Africa, business, economics, basically is a game of numbers. We're talking Nigeria, 192 million people. About 65% of them are youth. It's a vibrant economy. So it's not even wise that the average Nigerian entrepreneur is looking to think, globally instead of looking to think locally first, and take that market before you start looking outside. Finance, and finance again. I think that the major issue, that Nigerian businesses face, is financing. It's basically financing. Nigerian businesses have found a way to sort of deal with the power situation that we have. We don't have light. Fine. We're one of the most rugged entrepreneurs. Because I can imagine Zuckerberg having to deal with no light. But we found a way to sort of deal with these things and overcome. A challenge that we are constantly facing, is financing. The banks are too expensive. It crumbles businesses. Even the more affordable loans you would get, how many people can get them? We're talking of banks, of things like the Bank of Industry, for example. How many grants does the federal government give? If we have funds for entrepreneurship, how many people do know about them? How many people actually have gotten them? What we also lack is examples. We lack examples. A lot of these things thrive on precedents. So we don't have examples of people that the government invested in this business, or the government invested in that business, or they got this grant. We don't have poster boys, that have successfully been aided, whose businesses have successfully been aided by the government and have become role models to the rest of the society. You see, so these are things that we are lacking at the moment. But if the government could do one thing, for SMEs, most especially, it will be to enable them get easy, the key word is easy financing. Easy financing. So this is why I like Capavest. Think of Capavest as your agent looking for money for you. Just think about it. Think about you being able to tell somebody, I need this money, go and find it for me. That's exactly what Capavest is trying to do. Capavest is breaking barriers for we Nigerian business owners and Nigerian businesses, to access financing. You don't have to prepare a 1,000-page proposal and take it to a bank anymore, and then the bank will tell you, no, your project is not fundable, or your project is not bankable. Capavest seeks to link Nigerian business owners with financiers, people that are willing to fund your business or to fund your ideas all over the world and participate, be a part of your own business journey and your own success journey, which is extremely interesting. Myself as a business owner, as I heard about Capavest, I just became very excited. It whet my appetite. So I'm really looking forward to this. And I also encourage my fellow Nigerian entrepreneurs, business owners, you guys have something good, something, superb, something on the way to being successful. I encourage you to please be a part of this story. Let us partner with Capavest and let Capavest help us in achieving our dreams. Think Capavest, fund investment you love.